word snake springs to.
Don't knock it. You only get smarter by playing a snake. The bigger the trick, and older the trick, the easier it is to pull. Based on two principles. They think it can't be that old, and they think it can't be that big for so many people to have fallen for it. Eventually, when the opponent is challenged or questioned, it means the victim's investment and thus his intelligence is questioned. No one can accept that. Not even to themselves. Checkmate.
Hi folks, so I think that there's a number of things obviously going on with the whole CV story, it's not what it appears to be, obviously, on many levels, and I've kind of spoken about the existential nature of it as well, in a sense, but now I want to kind of just delve into it a little bit deeper, in a sense, and try and maybe capture some potential possibilities of what's going on. Again, these are just theories, these are just feelings for myself and observations that I've kind of put together, and if you will. So, there's a scene in the Truman Show where the security guards are wearing a T-shirt. I'll see if I can find the picture. The security guards of the Truman Show protecting, Truman from finding out the truth. Anybody entering into the sort of control room, and which could be, really give the show away if they got into the control room where they could speak to Truman through the microphone, like Christoph does in the end of the Truman Show. They could really give Truman the idea that he's living in some kind of controlled reality, some controlled world. And that's the last thing that they want, is the truth to come out. And so they're protecting Truman from anybody who wishes to come and tell them the truth. And on the T-shirt of these guys, of the security guards, it says, love him, protect him. Okay. And so got to ask yourself, what's that about? And that ring to me exactly what one of the things that's going on with this whole CV story is the idea that you have governments and experts and the doctors and the people that are supposed to really look out for you and really, really care for you for your well-being, that have studied, that have sacrificed their lives, putting themselves on their lives on the front line or whatever it is. A lot of the celebrities, a lot of the athletes, sports stars, politicians, talk show hosts, whatever you name it, whoever it might be, that these people are looking out, and they are the, I mean, you know what I'm saying. And so we trust in them. We trust in them that they love us and they care for us, okay? And that's not the case. It's not the case at all, obviously, so we know that, right? I mean, there's so much to be said, and I don't want to really make this into a very long video, but it's betrayal. The CV narrative is obviously about betrayal. It's an illusion, of course, and it's about betrayal. If you ask me if CV does exist, I say no. I'm sorry, I don't. Through my research and what I have found, I don't think so. And like I've said before, I feel the establishment don't ever do anything that's real. Okay, to a certain degree. I mean, there is elements that can be real about it, like if there's a shooting somewhere or something like that, that they could do something like that. There's an explosion somewhere, but a lot of the people talking, a lot of the bystanders, a lot of the witnesses, a lot of the people affected are not genuine. A lot of the times, like September 11 wasn't, it wasn't what it appeared to be, but yet people died. So it's manufactured. Every single thing is manufactured and not what it's supposed to be. And one of the things I have about the CV story is that if you're going to let a virus loose onto the planet, then eventually how are you going to curb it? Like if you're going to design something, if you're going to manipulate something, if you're going to modify something, and it's going to spread, which apparently this is even not really possible unless it's injected. but it's going to spread, then how are you ever going to really nip it in the bud? How are you going to keep it under control? And you can't. So what you do is that you have these tests that prove within the, and there's people that have proven this, right? I can put links in the description of the video if I remember, and that have shown that what these testing things do is that they just scan your own DNA, and if you have inflammation or your stress levels are high, or it's your exosomes, I think, or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't understand these things really, but I feel that what the evidence that people bring across to be true. And so that's my stance on it, if you ask me. Okay? And can you imagine telling people, and you can think differently, but let's just say from my point of view of how to talk to people and say, look, I don't believe this thing even exists, what they call it to be. It's too hard for them to understand why. Not only because they've been indoctrinated for many years since their birth and whatever it is. It's not so much even about that, you know. It's not that they're trauma bonded or something like that. Well, it is. I'm saying there's much to this. I'm getting carried away. But the thing is that at the end of the day, we don't want to believe that we've been lied to, and we don't want to feel that we've been betrayed. And that's one of the biggest things that's going on here, is that people have been betrayed. You don't want to believe that you've been betrayed by your talk show hosts, by your celebrities, by your athletes, by your governments, by the professors, by the doctors, by the very people who are constantly out there saving your life, you know, with all these so-called treatments and cures and medicines, and, you know, and you depend on them completely and utterly for their guidance, for their information, for their expertise. You don't want to believe that the emperor wears no clothes, because it's just too shocking to believe. It's just too, where does that leave you as an individual? Where does that leave you? You're very afraid now. You can't trust doctors, you can't trust the medicines, you can't trust the experts, you can't trust the celebrities. They're all in on it. It's like Truman in the Truman Show. You know, he starts realizing that everybody's in on it. And that's what is just so befuddling, but he's willing to go the distance and say, you know what, even my best friend is lying to me. He's not my best friend. It's all an illusion. It's all an illusion. So because the narrative is so big, the CV story is so big, right? And so many, and it's incomprehensible for it not to be real, right? Just like 9/11 wasn't as big, and there's been some time, you know, passed from it, so it's not as emotionally sort of impacting on people, so they can look at it and say, yeah, maybe, like the moon landing, people could possibly say, yeah, look, maybe, you know, they kind of faked it or something like that, you know, whatever it is. But something of this magnitude, they could never fake. Something this big, they could never fake. You don't want to know that you've been lied to. You don't want to know that, right? And also, with the emperor that wears no clothes, right? I mean, if you know the narrative, if you know the story of it, that everybody else is going along and saying that the emperor is clothed when he's actually naked. You know the story of the emperor. He got a designer. You know, he wanted to wear the most expensive, the most beautiful garments or whatever it is, and walk through the town square. And you got the best tailors in the world, and the best silks, and the best cottons, and whatever it was. I don't know. You know. But the problem is that the tailors let him down, and they couldn't make anything in time, so they pretended that what their brilliant design was that the clothing that they made him was invisible, but it's really there. And they convinced the emperor. And the emperor walked through the streets and he was naked, and everybody was so scared to say that the emperor was naked that they all just agreed, and they all put pressure on each other. Just don't say the emperor is naked. We can't change this reality. We will believe a lie. We will believe a lie. We will be gullible. We're scared and whatever. And a child comes up and says, "Hey, the emperor is naked," and then and the jig's up basically. And so that's it. We don't want to see the deception, right? I mean, we know this. We can't believe it to be true. But also, I think the majority of people are not capable of doing it. I don't think they have the intellect anymore. I don't think they have the morals anymore to be able to decipher such evil. They cannot work out such evil. They cannot. We don't live in a world where there is so-called evil, you know. We don't see that our world is inverted. Most people just accept this inverted satanistic world as being normal, as being moral. They don't realize that we're living in Babylon times or Sodom and Gomorrah. People don't realize it. They don't realize it. And, this is another point. I'm going to, go all over the show here, if you will. But like the idea that, let's just say, for example, there's so much I want to say. There's like, like Miley Cyrus, just for one example, this Walt Disney sweetheart, whatever it is, and Hannah Montana, who raises people's children, and then all of a sudden she turns into this woman who's just wearing a swimsuit on stage while she's caressing her private parts with her legs open, a swimsuit that's wearing, has dollar bills in it, or the next scene is she's licking a hammer, in her underwear or something like that, and or overly sexualized, and this is seen to be okay. Something or other. What I'm saying is the world that we see today seems to be okay. It's completely inverted, right? So, in other words, we don't know. There was a mother, and she sent me a picture, a friend of mine, and she sent me a picture of her son wearing a mask. And she said to me, this is how we prepare our children to go into the world in today's time. I think her son's 4 years old. And I was actually a bit confused because her son was wearing a Pokemon hat and a Spider-Man t-shirt. And the Spider-Man itself had like, a six-pack ab, whatever, and chest. It was, muscular. And the son was wearing sunglasses as well, that you couldn't even see his eyes. So it's like, but which part are you telling me this is how we dress our children up to go into the world today? Are you talking about the mask, or are you talking about the clothing? And what Spider-Man represents, what is Spider-Man? What is Spider-Man? The fact is, he's putting the satanic hand signs all the time. People, he's just, shooting webs. No, it's intentional, but obviously she doesn't know that. All these characters on TV that are, psychologically conditioning your children, you don't even know it. So you are the one that is dressing your child up in, she doesn't know, and I'm not pointing fingers, she's naive. And that's what I'm saying, is that people are naive. They're naive to evil. They cannot believe evil exists. Evil only exists in, TV series, in horror films, or whatever it is, on true life TV or something like that. We're completely desensitized. There is no evil, we think, in the world today. There is no such thing. We don't think Facebook is evil. We don't think Instagram is evil. We don't think McDonald's is evil. We don't think 5G is evil. We don't think many things are evil. We don't understand what evil is because, again, we live in this overly positive, optimistic world, right, where we're not in touch with our darker emotions, with the darker elements of ourselves, right? We've rejected all of that. We've abandoned all of that. And so we just believe that we live in a world that's highly, advanced technologically, right? Top of the, we highly advanced in the health industry. We're absolute geniuses. We're on the verge of creating this AI or, whatever it is. And we just all full steam ahead, be able to implant microchips in ourselves and whatever it is. I was at the supermarket the other day and I saw this TV. I couldn't believe the size. It was in the box. I couldn't believe the size of this TV. I could not believe the size of it. And then I walked into the back of the store and they had those TVs on, and the lighting was so bright. And I just felt sick watching this thing. And I think to myself, so people are watching porn on this thing. They're watching violence on this thing, right? The kids are glued to this thing. It's like, the colors are so realistic. I should have taken a little video of it or something like that too. But you know what I'm saying, folks. So, and people are watching this in a dark room at night time, while also probably glued to their cell phone. And this is what I'm saying, folks. It's like, you think people are like sheep to wear a mask, or they're fools to wear a mask. That frustrates me. When people can't believe that other people are so willing to don a mask and play the game. How naive are you? Why are you surprised? Why are you surprised? You really shouldn't be. Do you remember something called the Ice Bucket Challenge? Do you remember that, and how many people were in on it? And how many celebrities were doing it? Throwing ice cold water over their heads for a charity? And people were going on with it? Do you know the TV series that people are, I'm saying, the stupidity Jackass, do you remember Jackass? People, hurting themselves and doing stupid stunts, and how many people watched that? Wolf of Wall Street, okay, Kim Kardashians, McDonald's, KFCs, fluoride in the water. And you think people are not going to wear a mask? Like I said before, they'll wear a bone through their nose if they make it popular. They can have people walk around with their pants, men hanging below their waist, whatever it is, with their boxers sticking out, which is a sign from prison that you've been raped, and people make it look cool. These are just some examples, whatever it is. Why are people surprised that people are willing to social distance, that they're willing to wash their hands all the time, that they're willing to go along with the narrative? Of course they're going to. They're married to the Matrix. They're children of the Matrix. And one of the things, okay, so let's move on now, but we shouldn't be surprised. This is just, we can be surprised because sometimes it's hidden away, right? We didn't see it to this degree, but it's there, folks. It's there. We're not what we appear to be on the surface, and obviously this is coming more to, but this is just the beginning. What I'm saying is this is just a warm-up, because what this initiation is doing, it's like, well, if you believe this, then you're going to believe whatever else is coming. You understand? It's an initiation. This is just the warm-up. It's that if we can pull you in to this degree and you can believe it, right? The next thing, which is going to be so unbelievable because you're going to fake it completely. It's going to be completely fake, right? But you're going to believe it because we've brought you into a world of complete untrue, of inauthenticity, of the unreal, right? And so we can bring things that are completely unreal into your existence and you will accept it as being real. We can morph and change reality however we wish to. And this was the initiation. And all the people that have fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker, have supported the narrative, right? Even though, like you can say, even, you see, and I'm jumping around here, even though the numbers are so low, right? Let's say if you're going with the narrative, if you're taking what they're saying at face value, or whatever, what they say it is, right? Even if you say to people, look, you don't have to be that afraid, you don't have to be that paranoid, you don't have to, be so cautious about, not everybody, but a lot of people are, right? You don't have to be so enforcing on the masks and whatever it is. That I see people in the streets literally walking on their own, no one around, and they're wearing a mask. They're wearing the mask in the hot sun, walking up a hill, carrying a bag or whatever it is, and they're wearing a mask, right? They're simple. They're told what to do. Now, also, you've got to think about all different other cultures. But what I'm saying is that they're still willing to go along with it, even though they've come out now and said, well, the lockdown was a mistake. The projections was a mistake. Of course, there's no apologizing or anything like that so far, right? And they might even still bring more lockdowns. Look at what's going on in Australia. Even here we've got somewhat of a lockdown still, right? Whatever it is, there's still restrictions and still around the world. And they've admitted that they've been complete mistakes. That because of this, there's going to be more lives lost, more jobs lost. Just to say more lives lost, more hurt and pain unnecessary that's been inflicted because of it. And people know that. But they don't care because they trust their king. They trust their controllers. They've been trauma bonded, right? They've been bonded by it, so they will do whatever they have to do because they're in love with they think that that this is done out of love, and they just want to play their part. And I was speaking to my mother today on the phone, and she was saying that she had a bothersome morning because she was thinking about people that aren't allowed to travel to other countries, but what happens if once a son dies or a child dies or a parent dies and you can't go to the funeral. She says she lives opposite an old aged home, and she says these people have been locked inside for 5 months now. She says, and then if their family wants to come talk to them, they've got to do it through a gate and only for a few minutes. This is like, I kind of was saying that this is kind of like Auschwitz, where you had, you would come and talk to the prisoners. I'm saying some people would come to the prisoners that were behind the gate to talk to them, behind the barbed wire and something like that. And I was saying that this is more extreme than the Holocaust in a way, and can potentially probably will kill more people to it and hurt and harm more people than the Holocaust has. And yet people are completely on board with it, Anyway, so this is what I was saying to my mother, and she was very troubled by it. And it's true, but regardless, people will still separate themselves from their families. My mother was saying, what kind of institution does this? She just can't believe it, And she's in the know about it. I mean, she's somewhat on the idea that it's not what it appears to be. And, whatever it is. And she just can't, it's just too hard to comprehend. And it's just too hard to comprehend. But even if it's too hard to comprehend the bigger picture, to understand that they've come out and said, look, it's not as contagious as we thought it was, it's not as deadly as we thought it was, and whatever it is. And you see, but the thing is that it's too late. The cat's out the bag. They've already shown the news reports of the people that did get sick, and these horrific situations of these actors who did get sick, who said, like, you don't understand how bad it is. It lingers for like 6 to 8 weeks. And you out of breath, you feel like someone's sitting on your chest, and so the damage has been done, right? The trauma has been done, okay? And so even I won't take the slightest chance, even if they've come out and said that the risk is so low, because they put the fear so high. Anyway, so moving on, I mean, I want to try and put a number of points down here, and I don't even feel like I'm doing a good job of this at all. Anyway, so I was thinking to myself, why do they keep the numbers so low, the deaths? Because the thing is that they could have manipulated them. And you say, no, they can't manipulate them. I've had this conversation with people. They wouldn't be able to. They'd be caught red-handed. No, they wouldn't. People are already wearing masks, walking in the streets. They'll believe anything at this point. You could have said that the numbers were three times the amount, right? But they didn't, and I think for two reasons. One is because if the numbers were so high, then you wouldn't have people, you wouldn't have the ladies. Well, firstly, I'm saying you wouldn't have the essential workers. You wouldn't have anybody opening the grocery stores, because they would say, I'm absolutely petrified. There's no ways I'm going to work. If the number was so high, it's like there's no ways I can. This is ridiculous. That would have been the one problem. I mean, who's going to run the gas stations? You would have a complete societal breakdown if you didn't have the essential workers type of thing, or whatever it is. Even the doctors would probably chicken out and say, "There's no ways I'm doing this." I mean, maybe enough of them not to go to work to make a difference, or something like that. It would have been extreme, and they didn't want to do that extreme. So that kind of bothered me. But also, I think the benefit of keeping the numbers so low, to a certain degree, for some people, is that what your sacrifice was in vain. And that breaks the will. That's what breaks the will. It's like, yeah, you stayed at home, we put you through hell, we're putting you through hell, you've lost your job, you haven't been able, you couldn't go to your father's funeral, you couldn't visit your friend in hospital that was sick, you couldn't see your children if you were divorced. You couldn't get, I don't know, your surgery that you needed to get that wasn't as essential, whatever, that was delayed. You couldn't get your treatments, whatever, your whole life. How much of everybody's life was impacted in so many ways, except, guys who, do Netflix and Amazon and things like that, and, these other companies that got even richer. But for most people, their lives were impacted in the most horrible and horrific way. And for a lot of people who, sort of borderline of being like, yeah, this is a little bit, and there are a lot of people that say that this is ridiculous, they're not prepared to see the full conspiracy side of it, but they just say, well, yeah, there's politics about it or something like that, but they can't see that it's an evil cabal that runs the world type of situation, Shit, I got to see if this is recording. Sorry, folks, my last one I did this, I was recording it didn't come out. But I think it is. I'm going to have to stop. Okay, that seems to be recording fine. So, yeah, for those kind of people, that have a little bit of an IQ and a bit of intelligence, a little bit of, a curious mind or whatever it might be, it's very hard when because it hasn't turned out to be what they said it was going to be. It wasn't so extreme, and yet I made such a sacrifice, and it felt like it was for nothing, and that just breaks the will. For anything, for any efforts that we do in life, any sacrifices that we make, the suffering. I was speaking to my friend the other day about suffering, and please let our sufferings not be in vain for this life, because I don't know what to say about that, but I don't think our sufferings are in vain. But can you imagine that your sufferings are in vain? I mean, that will break, can break your spirit completely. And so for a lot of people, it's like, I did all of this, I went all along, all of this, I played a part, or I had to play a part in it, and what was it for? It was for nothing, right? In the bigger picture, it wasn't necessary. This is what they're saying. Now they're backtracking, they're double standards, and they're saying, well, maybe we went too far. Not everybody's saying, but they're putting it in there. They're putting it in there because it's like, what do you mean we went too far? Like, what are you saying? I've lost my job. I can't believe what's happened to me. I'm traumatized by what's happened. And it was for nothing, and that kills the spirit. And you'd be like, I can't believe this. It's hard to live with oneself to understand that, that I was duped in a way, that I was duped. And so it just, again, people can't appreciate the darkness of an evil, what evil is. It's too horrific to understand. And they can't do it because it's beyond their comprehension, right? It's beyond their comprehension. And so that's some of my thoughts about this situation. And I think it is an initiation because I think it's just the start of what's to come. And I think that the next whatever's to place itself is going to be so remarkable. And people are going to fall for it. People are going to fall for it. And we're going to be sitting back and saying, how on earth did they fall for it? Like how bizarre it is. Like, how do they fall for us? How can they believe it to be true? And it's going to frustrate us. It's going to, we're going to feel like, I don't know, annoyed, heartbroken. The faith that you had in people to be a little bit more wiser and smarter and to see them being manipulated and being taken advantage of and, whatever it is, scammed and deceived and they're going along with it and they're believing it and they're emotionally engaged by it and they're giving their energy to it, and it's controlling them and they're controlling their children's lives and they're controlling their friends' lives through what's ever going to come, and how part they are, how dedicated they are to the cult of the next, act or whatever it is. And you just feel like it'll be absolutely heartbreaking, and you just feel like you're losing more and more people, more and more friends, or just people that you had a little bit of belief in, or you had a little bit of hope in, or so. I mean, I don't have many people, in fact, not that I can even count on one hand, But we'll see how extreme it gets, and you'll feel very isolated, alone, and you'll feel like you won't be able to speak your truth and what's really going on, because it will be so perplexing. It will be so incomprehensible, like what you are saying to them. Like just as a CV narrative. Like if I told you that CV was coming, like in 2019, and I said this a virus is going to come, right? And people are going to fall for whatever it is, and you'll be like, no ways, no ways, whatever, like, and I'll say, but you can try and talk to them about it, tell them it's not true, that and it's not what it appears to be, and you can even predict it, and you'll say, I'm sure I can convince some people or whatever, or people, whatever, if I know beforehand, and if I tell them about it, and they can it doesn't matter. I'm saying even back then, people still wouldn't have believed you. I'm saying in whatever. So even now, I'm saying, like, I don't know if I've lost my point here, actually. But yeah, it's to. You won't be able to explain to somebody what's going on behind the scenes. right? And it's going to cost them. It's going to be costing them on more, on a soulful level. It's going to be costing them on a more energetic, spiritual level, on a more of a karmic level, for them to go along with it. They'll be walking the plank, and there'll be very little that you can do about it. Very little that you can interject or try and stop them or something like that. I don't know what the next event is, right? I don't know what it is. I mean, Mr. Gates talks about, those clips where he says, well, the second one will really get people's attention.
So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is, will get attention this time. So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is, will get attention this time.
He says, I call this phase one or stage one. Then the second one will really get people's attention. And I don't know, maybe that's got to do with the needle. Maybe that's got to do with rolling up the sleeve. And it's like, what will happen? What will happen if that really, firstly is, I don't want to think about how, if it's, to be mandatory, that's like, oh my heavens word, that's just to think about that. But not only that, but how many people go along with it. And then the repercussions of that, and if we're witnessing it and be like, let's say people are dying or whatever it is because of it. And we'd be like, and then they just say, well, it's a second wave. And this is how extreme it is. And you'd be like, come on now, people, wake up. It's not this, it's because you were injected with poisons or something like that. It's like, this is, and this is what they did to you. And they'll be like, get away from me, you crazy, type of thing. And I don't know, and it's going to be, that won't be a pretty picture. It won't be, you understand, I don't know. It won't be a pretty picture. But maybe it won't be as immediate. Maybe, like they've got to roll this out around the whole world, so it'll probably take 1.5 years. So how can the effects start happening even before they've got it, rolled out? There's many what ifs, obviously. It's hard to sort of prophesize it or predict it, rather, type of thing. So we don't necessarily know. But it's coming, and there will be ill effects of it, and whatever. And so we're going to have to look at it, and people in our lives are going to sign up for it, right? Be first at the door for it, and whatever. And it's going to be very difficult to observe and witness and see what's going on, right? And who knows? Maybe it will all be okay. Maybe it's not as extreme, right? But why do they want it? Why are they pushing it? I'm saying the effects of it. Maybe it's not as dangerous. Maybe it's just saline solution or something like that. But what is it? Well, what is in this mystery? What are they doing here? Because it's not trying to stop people from getting sick, folks. It's not about that. Apparently, even the flu needle is 3%. There's apparently a 3% chance that you won't get the flu. And so, what is this about? Is this about money? Could be, because it could just be possibly about money. Maybe. Could it be something? I don't know. Time will tell. Time will tell. It'll definitely be interesting, but it's definitely going to get bizarre. And I want to end off on this, folks. Again, there's so much more to be said on all of this. This is just sort of bits and pieces, and I should probably be more prepared and take notes down, but I just don't do that with my talks. So, I was speaking to my mother, and I was saying, is this part of humans? I wasn't really saying it this way, but like I said, people have, most people have got a very dark, negative nature about them today. Most people. Now, not children, right? Because children are innocent, but most adults, I would say, have taken, a turn towards the dark side, right? I wanted to do a talk on the people that have let you down in your life, and everybody, there's only two people in my life that haven't let me down, but everybody else has let me down. Okay, and I'll do a talk on that as well. But there's very few honest people left. There's very few good people left. Sincerely, there are very few uncorrupted people left. Okay, there's a lot more devil worshippers than there are, I don't know, God worshippers or godly people. Let's just say. I mean, we're all godly, but and so. That's the idea, the flood of Noah. God looked and said that the world became corrupted and vile and disrespectful and whatever it is, devil worshippers, and he flooded the world. And so, I mean, it's a myth, type of thing. But I wanted to talk about also betrayal, folks. Like, betrayal is one of the worst treatments to a human being. Betrayal and abandonment, which is almost the same thing. And again, sorry, I know I'm jumping around here, but the CV Betrayal is absolutely astonishing. The effects of it absolutely astonishing. And so anyway, I don't know, folks, is it not something that humanity deserves? This is very hard. I ponder about this a lot of the time, and I don't think I'll ever really find an answer. But is it not because of majority of humans' hearts have been closed off to the divine, to goodness, to kindness? I think I'd like to think we have a choice, and I think people have chosen to block their hearts, and I think that's why we find ourselves in the situation that we are in, or at least to the degree of how bad it is, because it doesn't have to be this bad, right? But I think it is. And you can say, well, people don't have a choice. The water's polluted, the air is polluted, the food's polluted, the TV's polluted, the music's polluted, whatever it is. And, where do we stand a chance? From education, from religions, from trauma. It's like human beings wouldn't stand a chance. Expectations are way too high. It was inevitable that this was going to happen, right? That the world is going to be governed and controlled, and a whole new order type of thing, come about and become satanistic and inverted, and it was inevitable. It's just part of the process. It's part of the evolution, perhaps, potentially, could be, could be. So, but also I think there's choice, and I think that at the same time, I think humanity has brought this upon itself. I really do. Because so many of us are so disgraceful and so dark in spirit, that it can make sense. But there's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of suffering going on. And may that suffering not be in vain for many. May that suffering also be a transitioning point, for their lives, a wake-up call for their lives, to return again back to the light, back to authenticity, back to the spirit. All right, folks, thanks for taking the time. We'll chat soon. Take care.